Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the ThePCelitist. My name is Woodsie, and today I'm all alone doing a video. I just had a lot of thoughts in my head that I kind of wanted to get out to you all regarding some footage I was watching on the new Thief game. And if anyone is a listener of this channel generally, you'll know that my handle is Woodsie, and it comes from the Thief games from the past. So I have a love for the Thief series. I'm not a Thief zealot per se. I don't know everything about the game and its lore, but I've always loved the Woodsie Lord, and I love that handle, so I always used it. So when I started doing the channel, Woodsie just was an obvious choice. There's a lot to talk about, and if you'll notice that there is no footage for this video, as normally there is some sort of gameplay footage, but the reason for that is I'm going to have you click the link that I have of another YouTube video in the description. Why am I doing that? Well, this video is owned by IGN, and specifically this footage I want to talk about. And I want you to kind of go with me through it, and we'll analyze it, and I can't repost it on my channel. But what I can do is a la Riff Track, MST3K-ish, have you bring up a new tab or a new window and put their video next to this one. I'm going to have you kind of pause the other one here and there. So click the link, open it up, move it to the side, get both in frame, and what I want you to do is mute the sound, because I can tell you right now, nothing substantive is said during this video. There's almost no reason to have the sound on other than hearing. No, they're just talking the whole time, and it doesn't matter. So fast forward to 1 minute in where the gameplay actually starts. And from a PC guy, a Thief guy, I'm going to explain some issues I have with the gameplay footage I try to explain it in a substantive way where someone from the other side, can understand. But someone from the other side might not understand what I mean when I say the other side. They say, what? The other side of what? These are all video games. Don't we love video games? Yes. Don't we love being immersed? Yes. The strange difference is how you get immersed is the important thing, because there are two sides to video game. There's a continuum, as we explained in one of our videos, and this is a compilation to that video, is that there's arcade and there's sim. And every game falls on this continuum somewhere. It's either a sim or it's an arcade, or it's somewhere in the middle. It favors the arcade side, it favors the sim side, one or the other. But generally people who play PC, and I'm explaining this for people who don't know, if there's anyone on the other side listening, generally the people who play PC love to be in that sim side. They like to have mostly sim elements with a few arcade elements, whereas the consoler generally, and people who like more arcadey gameplay, like arcade elements with some sim elements. Okay? I'll give you an example right now. A huge game right now is The Last of Us, and I've watched quite a bit of gameplay. I would have probably played it if I had a PlayStation 3, but I don't. But this is a game that heavily relies on arcade-style gameplay, and it does it in impeccable form and professionalism. It's everyone who worked on this game are masters of what they do. The animators, the mocap guys, the actors were fantastic, but it's very arcadey. So that's that side. And then there's the sim side, who they reach that point of immersion through completely different means. Now, I was watching this video, and I have it paused at 1 minute and 1 second, and you guys should do the same, or at 1 minute. In the comments of this video, there's a lot of kind of vitriol and hate going between people about old PC gamers saying this ruins Thief. And there's not a lot of explanation of why it ruins Thief. There's just, ew, that third person mode, or ew this, or ew that. I want to go into why we don't like it, why it takes away from the sim side and adds to the arcade side, and we don't like it. Because there is a balance in games where you can't get both. You can't go to both camps. You have to pick one. And every time you make a creative decision, you're either favoring one side or the other. Okay? So the needle can't be on both sides. So what happens often with a game like this, where it's trying to mix the new and the old, what's funny is you'll try to get the needle in both camps so many times, you're going to find yourself somewhere in the middle, and then no one really likes the game that much. It's just bland for both people. Like, it didn't quite use enough sim elements to get all the sim people. It didn't quite use enough arcade cinematic elements to get those people. So everyone's like, it's okay. But we're going to go through them right now. I know this is pre-alpha and that we shouldn't prejudge, but we can only go by what we see. So I'm going to go ahead and play on this video. And they show the city burning because, like, the storyline, I guess, at this point is there's all these riots going on in the city, and Garrett's using this opportunity of dissidents to kind of break into this manor while everything's kind of nutso. So we have this little fly-through going on where they're showing, you know, the place he's trying to break, and Garrett's kind of commentating what he's trying to do. Then we have this swoop in, and this guy's like, hey, so you guys don't, like, you know, ruin this job. We need to watch this building. And he's acting very serious, and the player in his head is like, I'm going to break it. I don't care how serious you are. So we come back. Now we're in Garrett's view. Now, I'm going to have you pause it right there. I guarantee you that some people from the original Thief series didn't even like this stylistic fly-through. I could take it or leave it. Actually, I can. If you really forced me, my hand, I would say get rid of it. Why? Because for sim people like myself, and for those who don't know, we want for things to be sim style. Everything needs a reason for being. There needs to be a reason for these things to happen. That little fly through was all for the cinematics, and I got a sense of the level, of the layout of the level, without actually visiting or going over there or seeing it myself. The camera just, you know, disconnected from my character, flew over there, showed me the level, showed me the layout, and came back. And it showed me a story element and then swooped back. That is a non-cinematic, that's a non-sim element. Simulation, if anyone's confused at this point. That's a non-simulation element because there's no reason that my character should know those places yet because I didn't visit there. It's not a big deal. It's not like a game-breaking thing or by any means, but it's not simulation. It doesn't draw that crowd. So we're going to keep that in mind. This is not so much a criticism. This is just an explanation that of what crowd you're accommodating when you do things, okay? So here we go. Let's continue on. I'm at 1:47 and I'm pressing play. So Garrett's in first person and he's walking, does this little like swoop move, climbs up this thing. I do like the hands, and I do like how his hands work and his like claw that he like climbs up onto stuff with, which in the first Thief I think was just like, the first game was just like you had no hands and you just like magically kind of climb up things. I'm going to pause it right here. It's at 2 minutes, 11 seconds. This whole thing with the fog around the eyes, I mean, I don't know if it's a placeholder or what's going on with it, but it's a cinematic thing to do, like, ooh, you're in the shadows, like it's around your eyes, and to give the player the feel of being in darkness. But if you'll notice, when he looks around, he's really not that dark. Okay? So that is it's an arcade element. That is not a sim element. A sim element would be it's actually dark. You know what I mean? So if you'll notice throughout this entire demo, it never seems that dark. And I don't know if they did that for just for the live demo. Maybe they'd have the gamma way up so people on the floor can see it. I hope not, because in the original Thief game, there was really dark areas where it's pitch black. So I'm kind of reserving judgment on that. But, you know, some people might say, well, Woodsie, if it's too bright, if the developers make it too bright, then why don't you just turn the gamma down and then you have your dark game? I mean, what's the big deal? the deal with that is that doesn't work, because what I want is a developer who sees the darkness as a realistic element. So if there's no torches and it's in the middle of the night, that it should be dark. It should be pitch black. Secondly, if the developer doesn't see the darkness as a reality, that there are places in this in the castles that are pitch black unless you have a light source, then it's less of a chance that they're going to use it as a tool of gameplay that, oh, in this area it's going to be pitch black. The player's going to have to figure out some sort of light source to get in there. So it's like a tool out of their tool belt that's gone. They're not really going to use it against the player to challenge the player, which is kind of sad. And thirdly, is that it gives you the feeling as the player, if it's not actually that dark, but the guards actually can't see you, you are in darkness, that the only reason you are in darkness is because the little gem is telling you you're in darkness. It gives the world a feeling that it's accommodating the player, which sim people friggin' can't stand, okay? By the way, I still have this thing paused at 2 minutes, 12 seconds. Sim people don't want the world to feel like it's ever accommodating you. In the real world, sometimes it's really dark. And if there's no torches, then you can't see. That's a world that doesn't accommodate you as the player. In this world, if it's as bright as it is in this demo, then they're developing a world, we don't want to be too dark because it's frustrating for people. That's accommodating the player, so it gives an unrealistic feel to the world just by that small element, and it's very subconscious if you're not paying attention to it. So let's continue on. Let's keep moving through the video. And they have the little wheel, and he takes out a water arrow, which is always great. I love the water arrows from the first game. And then he jumps down and tackles the guy and punches him. Okay. Any old Thief fan in that moment, I paused it at 2 minutes, 29 seconds. Any old Thief fan just had like a lurch in their stomach. It just went, oh! Like they got punched. Why? Because it had that little drawback to the third-person mode. There's a reason why people on our side of the camp hate that. Okay? Because it steals the satisfaction of the player actually completing the act of taking the guy out. Now, I don't know if this is pre-alpha or what have you, and you'll actually want... I doubt it. That looks pretty... It's pretty much in the game that the takedowns will be third person. It takes the satisfaction out of the player's hand of actually completing the act, because the frustrating thing and the great thing about the Thief series has always been setting up the dominoes. What are the dominoes? The Garrett's position, the guard's position, and the environment in which he's going to do the takedown. Those are your dominoes, right? So I got in the position I want to get in. I took out the light with my water arrow. I waited for the guard to be in the right spot. I jumped down at the right time. And then right when you're supposed to get all the satisfaction, it takes it out of your hands by going third person, even though you did activate the animation, and the guy punches him out and he's down, right? You say, well, that's just as satisfying, but it's not. There's a visceral, satisfying element that was stolen away from you as the player, and unless you're used to having it, you might not miss it. If you're the arcade player who always sees this type of thing, having it and then losing it is a much bigger deal. So why I could kind of prove it to you through just logic of why that it's being taken away from you, and that is, if I said to someone, describe what just happened on screen, describe the event, and I would say, well, the character, the player, he like jumped up onto the little mantle there, and then the guard was walking under him, and he jumped down, and then he, tackled him and knocked him out. And you would think, well, okay, so when you say he tackled him and knocked him out, who are you directly referring to? And the answer would have to be, though, the character on screen, because the player is not really doing those things. It's like if I think we've all had that moment where we're playing some kind of really violent game that has animations. Like I was playing BioShock Infinite, and my girlfriend was sitting there watching, and she like right in the beginning of the game when you like throw up the ball, there's like a part where you have a baseball in your hand. Anyway, you throw up the ball to distract the guards. They're like looking at the ball, and your character grabs the little like claw machine they have and jams it into the guy's face. Right? I activated that animation by doing what I did in the game. But my girlfriend was like, the people who made this game are so violent. Or, she said something like that. She automatically gave the onus to the developer, right? Like, oh my gosh, they're horrible. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that was crazy. On the negatives, when I'm like, on a negative end, I'm like, well, the developer did that. Yeah, it wasn't me. They just did that. I just pressed the button, and then all horrible things happen, right? So you don't get it both ways. You don't get all the satisfaction for doing something, but also can leave the things you don't want to on the developer. You actually don't get all the satisfaction when the control is taken away from you in that moment. So that is, a simplified explanation kind of why we don't like the control being taken away, because you lose that satisfaction of actually knocking down the dominoes of completing the act. Okay, so let's keep moving. This isn't actually a long video, but I pause it and I just make all this commentary. So it's going to turn out to be longer than I expected. But so you can see that the world isn't actually that dark. And again, I don't know. I do like that. Pause it at 2:44. I do like that you look around the corners and like you see his hand actually touching. It looks very textile. The way he's like grabbing the wall. That's cool. So I'm going to keep going. Pressing play. These UI elements so far are pretty minimal. Okay, stop right there. Boom. 2 minutes and 53 seconds. Let me just rewind that for a second. Sorry. Okay, so I'm at 2 minutes, 43 seconds. Okay, so he pulls out his bow. He goes over to his broadhead arrows. Pulls out his bow. All right, 2 minutes, 53 seconds. Okay, so we have a few things going on right now. Okay, and again, these are all microcosms of one large picture. So, anyone could say, well, just because of that, the game's ruined. No, not just because of one thing. It's usually a large mixture of things. To achieve immersion is never usually one giant thing. It's usually a ton of little things. So, every time you send one thing to the arcade camp, you lose it on the sim camp, and then thus you lose people. They drop immersion. So here we have the bow being pulled back, and there's an inconsistency. You haven't had a crosshair yet, but as soon as he pulls out a bow, suddenly there's a crosshair. Now, the way the first thief solved this problem is that he had a sight actually in-game attached to the bow. So there was a little sight coming off the side, and you would zoom in on it. That made perfect sense, and actually that accommodates both camps. If the arcade and the sim people, they both see, well, the sight is on the bow, what's the big deal? But once you get rid of it, once you just make it a UI element, then it takes away from the sim side, because why is that there all of a sudden? Does Garrett have some magic? It doesn't make any sense, and it's inconsistent. They should have just added something on his bow that acts as a sight, and Garrett should hold it like a real archer would, and not like just this stylized gangster way he's doing right now. So anyway, that's my commentary. And then it goes into this like the super eyeball mode where he can see things, like he has thermal vision on, which doesn't take much explanation. Someone can say, oh, it's his robot eye that does that, but it's still lame. So he kills the guard. We're pressing play now. We're now 3 minutes in. I do like the climbing and stuff, and then picking up the guard's body is always cool, and the arrows in his head. This is all very normative stuff, though. So this is nothing out of the norm of the original Thief game. So they're not adding anything to the series. That's just how it always has been. All right, so here at 3 minutes and 34 seconds, he turns on. We get the the eyeball vision because Garrett has one robotic eye, so I guess this gives him license to have some sort of thermal vision installed so that players can turn it on and they kind of get a sense of where the guards are, where things of importance are, items of interest, that kind of thing. Now, I've thought about this a lot, how much, I don't like it. It is a non-sim element, so it takes away from the players' need to be observant and discover the world by himself, and it adds it to the arcade side where sim people really don't like to go. Now there is the argument, like the darkness argument, you could say, well, just don't use it. And that actually, in this case, unlike the darkness argument, that actually I think is a valid argument because you could say it's something just like a hint system for the player. You can either use the hint system or not use the hint system for the most part, I believe. I've been trying to think of any other things that it might, other than that, it's added work for the developers to put in that, is unnecessary, in my opinion, to a lame use of their time, but whatever. If I never use the thermal mode or whatever you want to call it, or detective mode, then you don't have to. I see it as a hint system. And as long as the developers create the game so that I actually never have to turn it on, that I could go through the entire game without ever using it, and the sound quality is good enough and it has surround sound and I can tell where guards are, that kind of thing, without ever turning on that mode, then I guess if it's there, it really doesn't bother me that much, as long as the game is playable without it. The thing about this game is that I do know that they are trying to accommodate. I'm pressing play now and letting the game run. I know the developer is trying to accommodate both the past and present by making the UI scalable, which I do appreciate that. So you could turn off indicators over guards' heads and whatnot. You'll notice that they usually, for these demonstrations, have as much UI turned off as much as possible, which is, in some way kind of is admitting to the fact that it looks more immersive and it looks cooler without UI everywhere. But functionally, a lot of players, they make a lot of UI elements for those players. So, and those are for people who don't like kind of the challenge of discovering the world or having to actually kind of create a skill for that specific game. They just want to have a more simplistic fun. So now Garrett had the opportunity, using his detective mode, to see that there's oil on the ground. Because every robotic eye has oil highlighting systems installed. So there's just reasons why it just takes away from the sim side and puts it into the arcade side. But if you never turn it on, you never turn it on. Big deal. Let's fast forward here to the 7-minute mark. Puts up a bottle. It's throwable. All right, stop right there. 7 minutes, 28 seconds. He has this bottle. He could throw it. Okay, just drives me nuts. This is one of these things I hate about new games, where they have the little arc of where the bottle will land when I throw it. The reason I don't like that is because, again, it takes the skill out of the player's hand. The player doesn't have to learn how far Garrett throws things, what the arc is like. There's no skill shot involved. There's no skill. It takes all the skill out of the player's hands. The skill is in the character's hands, which is, for me and anyone who's more on the sim side, a less immersive element. So if you could turn it off in game, I'd be happy about that. And I think, that was mostly what I wanted to commentate on. If you guys watch the rest of the video, because I think this video has gotten a little long as it is, I'm curious what everyone thinks of the swooping mechanic of Garrett's now. Anyone who's fans of the series, he'll be ducked and kind of swoop around. because there's not a lot else going on in this video. I don't know how I feel about it. It's kind of weird. Like, I can't imagine in my head what he looks like as he's doing that. It just seems like he's just magically sliding around. Also, in this point, if you turn on the audio, you'll see that like the developer says that they tried to get away from the name Water Arrow and name it something else, which just kind of bothered me as a Thief fan. Like, why would you want to get away from the Water Arrow? It's like a staple of the series, that and the Rope Arrow. But anyway, those are my thoughts on, just these elements of the game and kind of where people who are fans of the series were probably unhappy. And there needs to be, these rules need to be understood by people on both sides of the camp, so that when you develop games or when you're kind of breaking down a game, you could see where these rules are broken and why these are non-immersive or immersive elements. Sometimes elements are just non-immersive for either camp, but if you try to accommodate both sides too much, you're going to find that your the needle is somewhere in the middle, and neither side is going to like it. So I fear that this will happen with Thief. I'm not terribly excited that this game is being made in the way it's being made, but we'll see. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, thumbs it up. Please, leave a comment. If you have any other, musings on anything I've said, please let me know. My name is Woodsie, and this is the PC Elitist signing out.